Okay, so here we go, continuing the series on the electric human. And there's a certain idea behind the sequence, there's a certain idea and a reason why we're going through 10, and there's a nature to each episode. This episode is called The Mystic, and it really covers the idea of mystical things, special atmospheres, special essences and forces, sacred places, sacred energies. Before going any further, remember, if you're interested in furthering and deepening these themes, you want to find out more, go to the rubyendeavor.org, and there's an online course, written and video, to study in your own time. So where to start with this is in the idea of high to low. We know that some foods, for example, are better for you than others. There are some processed foods that if you eat too much, you're going to get sick. Some people will avoid any types of processed foods. We know there's certain food is for animals. It's not for human consumption. Liquid, think about a dirty, contaminated water, maybe in a puddle on the side of the street. You've probably all seen a dog licking from that puddle and you think, not for me, not for a human. We tend to want better quality. We tend to want better, finer things coming into ourselves, to consume better things, to be influenced by better things. And it's the same with the force worlds. There is gross, hot, dense, unpleasant energy. And people know it. There's a reason why things like exorcism is still talked about. There's a reason why there's things like haunted houses and the mythology of vampires and werewolves and all this type of thing. Sometimes not exactly as the mythology portrays, of course, nothing like Twilight, for example, but there is some basis to it. There's a low astral realm, and most people have some moment or some experience where they feel something quite unpleasant and pull back, hopefully, and don't have that experience. Then you have a lot of more or less ordinary energies to do with friends, family, work, house, getting things done, and that's really ordinary life energies. And then people feel a longing, people feel a need to have a moment or touch or have some experience with something higher, a higher force. And a lot of life, for example, people going to church and temples and reading the Bible, is a kind of dedication towards having that experience. And certainly there are higher forces. If you think of across the board of mythology and religions all around the world, and shamans and temples and shrines, there's definitely a higher spectrum of forces that a human can have an experience with. The big question is, in what way, how, what does it mean? It's interesting, the word that mist, something not clear. You have a mist, you cannot see clearly. The word mystical has that element. There's something not clear about what actually is going on in this case. And one of the non-clarities is because we don't live in that realm now. Somehow the human is sunken. I would say sunken because I believe there was a time we lived closer to higher forces. And we've somehow sunken to a point that what we consider normal is not really normal. It's become normal, but it's not really what we are able to be with. And I don't like using the word should, but I feel should be with. Just like every parent wants the best for their child. They want the best things. They want the child to be eating and drinking and influenced by the best energies and influences. I feel that that is for the human also, is to have the best of what's available or better things coming into them. So if I go to somewhere like Machu Picchu or the local church, or even one of the great churches of England, for example, or Europe, am I going to immediately walk into this high force? Well, unfortunately not. Am I going to meet high essences? Are there angels in that church? Probably not, and I think most people know that, actually. Now, there may have been originally the intention to set up this church or temple or shrine to be a point of contact with higher things. But what happens is, without some understanding of how unseen forces work, you have people tromping into this place And these days it's gotten worse because you've got hundreds, thousands of tourists coming into places, taking photos, taking selfies, looking around, and all of this is a radiation too. Now, if there was some high essence that once occupied that shrine, for example, it will back away. And now what happens is the earnest seeker comes to the door or gate of this place, hoping to have a religious experience. And the structure is still there physically, but actually the place has been filled out now with the emotions of the tourists who visited that place. And the original essence isn't there. Sometimes you can still pick up something, you might feel a residue of something, but I can tell you it's not normally where all the tourists are walking. So there's a challenge if a person can travel the world and go to all the sacred places but not actually meet a sacred force, then you've got a situation where there's a challenge of how to have an experience with something high and holy. I would recommend the first place, look for those places in nature on the earth, because the planet still has very pure, fine energies, but they're normally off the beaten path from where humans are tromping for the same reason I said earlier. People walk in the park even, and they're running and they're tromping and they're talking loudly. And if there is any finer life in that park or forest, like fairies and elementals, these things are going to back away. And a person will walk through and they'll see the green and they'll have the fresh air and they'll feel the general basic minimum of energy of the forest, but that more subtle side to the forest will go missing. So there's several things, and this is not the circumstance to go through what's possible, but here's a couple of suggestions to do with starting to approach the more mystical, even at planetary level. And there are other more higher elevations to do with the sun and to do with the stars and to do with the galaxy. But even on this planet, I mean, people love to think they're going to connect to and feel an angel, but it's rare for a person to even feel the radiation of a single flower. So we have to start where we are. We have to start with simple things like flowers and trees. But let's say that you come to an area of a forest and you feel there's something special there. It's a grove, it's a bosque, and you feel that there's some special energy there. Well, what you don't want to do is just go crashing in. This has been a human trait, and it's a very red. If you put a color to it, it's red. It's invasive. The human problem can be summed up by the idea that one of the human problems, that we invade. We cut in. Instead of respecting spaces, instead of respecting other people, we blast our way in. So come to the edge, treat it like it's a house, come to the edge of the bosque and let yourself adjust electrically and announce your presence as if you were at the gate or at the door of somebody's house. And you state who you are and why you are there, because it's there. If you just barge in, it has no option. If you're on a different frequency, it will retreat from you. And high force can pull away. It goes down into the earth, or will back off one way or another. And so adjust at the gate. This is why in Japan they had the Torii gate. It was the point of transition, the point of transformation, to adjust and synchronize with the place you're going into. Then go in, open, sensing, and you need to start sensing with two levels of your skin. The skin of the body, which has a different function beyond all the biological functions. It can also detect radiations. But there's also a skin to the aura. Our aura is a bubble shape, about 1 meter from the body in all directions. It has a sensitivity. That's why we can feel things sometimes out from ourselves. A person approaching or something, and you feel it, it's your aura picking it up. So go into the space, open, and let your skin pick up, the two levels of skin, pick up the radiation and the nature of this place. So you become in harmony with it rather than offset to it. You quietly tune into it. Then you're going to get permeated with the sacredness of that space. And The sacredness simply means finer and higher levels of astral energy that then activate certain regions of the brain that are normally dormant. Our brain is a bit like a TV without the remote control. Certain essences function like the signal that comes from the remote control, and suddenly we're seeing things differently, we're feeling things differently, we're sensing differently. And so there's a lot more to this subject, because you could, for example, go to somewhere like Machu Picchu or other regions of Peru or Egypt, and you'd have to move outside from where all the tourists are, and there would be a way to approach those monuments to connect with the original essences there. And of course, you have to keep a certain part of yourself reserved for this side of life. There's another side of life that deals with the gross, the mundane, the obligations of life. There's another part of life that we enjoy things, the beach, food, friends, and this side. And it's really keeping the three operating, what we have to do, but starting to make this a priority. It's not just once now and then, but starting to treat it as a priority by gathering laws, by gathering understanding, and by studying this type of thing that we're looking at right here. So I hope there were some ideas in there that were useful, and we'll see you in the next episode of The Electric Human. Bye for now.